Hello, my dear students of Preparatory 3. Today we are going to start our novel, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. This is Charles Dickens and the two cities are Paris and London. A Tale of Two Cities, 1859, is a novel by Charles Dickens, set in London and Paris, before and after the French Revolution. With well over 200 million copies sold, it ranks among the most famous works in the history of fictional literature. Introduction. A Tale of Two Cities is written by Dickens in 1849, written in 3 parts, released one part at a time throughout 1949, set against the backdrop of the French Revolution, begins in 1775. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. These are the most important points which we are going to discuss it throughout the video. Introduction to the novel, the life of Charles Dickens, caste system in France, the French Revolution, and important locations mentioned throughout the novel. Let's start by the biography of Charles Dickens. This is Charles Dickens. He was born in 1812 and died in 1870. He was born on February 7, 1812. His father was sent to the Debt House when Charles was only 12. He worked in a shoe polish factory to pay off his father's debts. In 1836, he married his wife, Catherine Hogarth. Dickens had 10 children, but 2 died before him. Some of his most famous titles include A Tale of Two Cities, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, and Great Expectation. Now, it's time for a little history lesson. The time represented in A Tale of Two Cities between 1757 and 1794. The social conditions in France before the French Revolution in the 18th century. On the throne of France, King Louis XVI, the king has absolute power, and his wife, Queen Marie Antoinette. This is King Louis XVI, and this is the famous Marie Antoinette. The French society was divided into the upper class and the rest of the nation. The upper class represented by the nobles or the aristocrats, and the rest of the nations, the middle class and the mob, the poor people. French caste system pre-revolution. King, monarchy, first state, clergy, second state, nobility, represented in the character of the Marquis of Evermond, third state, everyone else, represented in the character of Monsieur Defarge. Pre-revolutionary France, or the circumstances in France before the revolution. The caste system in France left the people of France poor and starving. while the nobles prospered. Taxation was very high on all items because France didn't trade many goods, and that is how the government earned its money. The people were also made to pay tenths of they earned to the church. France had also made alliance with America and were helping fund the American Revolution. In general, the aristocrats were privileged class. They lived for their pleasure and interests. They didn't have to pay taxes. Any nobleman had the right to send any of the ordinary person to the Bastille without trial if he wrote a letter du cachet against him. What about the life of the poor people, the mob? The poor peasants were oppressed by the aristocrats. Most of them were acute peasants and lived in acute misery. They had to pay heavy taxes to the states, the church, the landlords, and local taxes. They never had enough to eat and had almost no rights. They were living under the mercy of the nobles, and they knew nothing in their lives but the taste of black bread and death. This comparison is very clear in these words of Charles Dickens.
It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair.
And what is the result for all these circumstances? Of course, the French Revolution. Now, let's move to the social conditions in England before the French Revolution. On the throne of England during the 18th century, King George III and his wife Queen Sophia Charlotte. In England, there was unrest and disorder because people were afraid of the robbers. The English government was busy on conquering more colonies from North America and Canada. They neglecting their internal affairs, and as a result of that, robbers spread in England and people doubted each other. So, the King of England was busy handling his country's problems with American colonies to worry about his own people's poverty. The king and the nobles weren't concerned with the poor people. That is why there was much poverty and crime in the city of London. The roads were full of gangsters. Most of them were poor and highway robbers. That is why traveling wasn't safe at that time in England. Travelers had to wrap their faces to cheekbones. They suspected each other. They were afraid that someone might be a robber or in league with robbers. Now, let's move to the last part of our video for this day, which is the important locations mentioned in the novel: the Bastille, the Old Bailey, and Saint Antoine Street. The Bastille. Famous prison, fortress in Paris. The event, storming the Bastille during the French Revolution, and Dr. Manette spent 18 years there. What about the Old Bailey? The Old Bailey is a courthouse located in central London. Deal with the major cases of England. Located in Crown Court, where Lucy Manette lived, where Charles Darnay charged with treason, and where we are introduced to Sydney Carton. Saint Antoine Street, a suburb near Paris, where the Defarge's wine house is located. Okay, my dear students, thanks for watching. This is the first part of our novel videos. Okay, next time, God willing, we are going to have the characters of the novels. Thank you and see you soon. Goodbye.